Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) raises concern over 170 billion naira unclaimed dividends. Federal government calls on the European Union to step up investments in gas. Plus, oil prices declined by 3.32% to $116.65 per barrel. This is Business Express on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA, and we're reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital. I am Leah Katung Babatunde. The federal government's strategies in protecting rail infrastructure is adopting community approach as the Nigerian Railway Corporation (NRC) sensitizes some host communities along the Abuja-Kaduna rail corridor.
The crime is becoming more and more dynamic, and it requires dynamic decisions and dynamic changes, to meet up with the current trend.
We are going back to the drawing board to do much more.
And it's a visit of cooperation, understanding between the host community and the railway. We have understand each other and we have advised where necessary.
MFS Africa, the largest Pan-African digital payments hub, has announced it has completed its acquisition of Capricorn Digital Limited, known in the market as Baxi. The transaction was first announced in November 2021 pending approval of the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN), which has now been granted. Baxi is one of Nigeria's largest independent SME-focused electronic payment networks. It provides a cash-in and cash-out offering as well as value-added services to the last mile. Baxi has become the entry point for MSF Africa into the Nigerian market. The acquisition also provides synergies that include simplifying cross-border payments and integrates payments through one hub. And still with that payment market, the federal government is calling on the European Union to step up investments in gas and hydrocarbon in Nigeria to meet up with the EU's energy needs. Lydia Sampson reports that the call is occasioned by the lingering crisis between Ukraine and Russia, which is threatening gas supply to European countries, as Russia presently supplies about 30 to 40% of EU gas needs.
Opportunities for us to work together. So many opportunities. And I want to assure you that we as a country are ready. Mr. President has mandated us to work assiduously to ensure that we're able to deepen the partnership.
The next step would be to have technical talks most likely during the month of April, to see whether we can make this prospects, concrete.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin last week made a demand that unfriendly countries henceforth pay for Russian gas in rubles, and it has had several immediate effects. Its countdown to the expiration of 1 week notice, that 1 week notice for Europeans to switch to paying in the Russian currency. Since its announcement, the price of natural gas has risen. The ruble has strengthened against the US dollar since the announcement, and the world is paying attention to these happenings. How will it affect producing countries like Nigeria, that is also a major consumer? Isa Aliu Shatta is the Vice President at Kongapay and joins me virtually to look at the economics of Putin's gas for rubles for the West. Mr. Shatta, it's good to have you again on the program. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
And how is Lagos this afternoon?
Lagos is pretty fine.
Oh, great.
It's a bit cloudy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, great. That's nice. At least some relief for the heat, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, great. So we move to the business of the day. Part of sanctions by the West to Russia as soon as it invaded Russia is a ban from the international payments messaging system SWIFT, which serves 11,000 member banks from 200 countries and territories around the world. How is Russia surviving without that market? A lot of people would want to know. That service is off the Russian reach.
Yes, it will definitely affect the Russian market because it will come as a shock first. The reason is not far-fetched because there is large inflow of cross-border payment that happens in Russia, both the outbound and inbound, transactions that they process. So they didn't really prepare for this, but they knew that this might actually come up. That was the reason why they started, having a relationship with China to see how they can also use the alternative method of the China's cross-border payment interbank settlement, to cushion the effect. But don't forget that two banks were actually not part of those bans, apart from the one that US added. Those banks were actually not included because they are largely participating in the oil and gas for Russia. And Russia supplies 40% of European gas and oil markets. So they are also a bit smart about the ban because they know that if that ban happens, it means they are going to be cut off gas and oil and they will not be able to pay. But SWIFT is not like an instant settlement per se. It's a messaging platform where banks can communicate and send, transaction message as a proof of guarantee for how they can actually process most of this transaction from the cross-border payment point of view. So yes, the hit is very hard on Russia, but is it that strongly felt? The answer is no, because there are alternative means that the banks can actually deploy. It's just that it can be as swiftly, as quickly as possible, just the way the acronym is SWIFT. For them to do transaction, they can actually, contact other financial institutions via mail, via, messaging and all that, for them to confirm, on their end, the transactions that are taking place. But they know how they settle, because even SWIFT just gives you a guarantee. Most of the settlement actually happen with bond, with forex exchange and all that. So yes, it's a dicey situation for all the parties that are involved, both the European Union, the US, and Canada, UK, and of course Russia, that is feeling the heat.
Okay. Do you see Putin going ahead to insist on payment in rubles? And if he does that, what will it mean for payment systems around the globe?
Yes, just like I rightly said, there's been push, to adopt the rubles as an alternative method of payment acceptance, most especially when it has to do with transaction that is settling into Russia. And that will come with its own challenge, of course, because of the sanction that is currently on them with SWIFT. But currently, I am aware that the president had instructed the central bank to quickly create an alternative platform for payment, collection or to do transactions, which will, to a large extent, address, the cross-border payment. But they will need to actually do that with another large global platform, which is the reason why they are, considering the option of using the China's international payment platform to carry out transactions. But like I rightly, pointed out, there are other means where they be able to, complete transaction or carry out transaction via mail exchange with different financial institutions. What that entails is there's going to be a guarantee behind every, messaging that goes out, from each financial institution that is communicating with them. Is this going to immediately now distort or disrupt, the markets, the international markets? The answer is yes, because Russia plays a very, very formidable role in terms of cross-border payment, in terms of cross-border transaction, in terms of cross-border trading. So it will definitely have its own impact, not just from Russia, but from countries or allies of different countries who are currently in business with Russia.
Now, Nigeria is occupying a very fantastic spot in the sense that we are major producers and we are also major consumers, importers. So, how will this be affecting us in this part of the world? Of course, people like you who are active players in this sector.
Yeah, it's going to affect us because, like I rightly said, there are large numbers of Nigerians who trade in Russia. Not just that, we have students in Russia. We have people going for healthcare delivery system. We have people going for, one needs or another. So there's a demand and supply chain here where everybody will be communicating with how they want to actually participate in the global market. So for Nigeria specifically, with this sanction and with this restriction, it is definitely going to hinder, cross-border payment and acceptance across board. But then, like I rightly said, you remember there was a time when Nigeria was considering, utilizing the China's yuan to carry out transaction. The swap, Nigerian swap with the current China currency. So this is an eye-opener for us to see how we can actually connect that funnel to ensure that the payment pipeline is not just limited to one channel of carrying out transaction, but we have multiple channels of interoperability across board. But once this has happened, it will also inform everybody who is involved to begin to think about alternative method of payments. And this is exactly what the West woke up to when you had the 1973 Suez Canal War, where the Arabs used oil as a means of global war weapon. So at that point, every nation who depend largely on, Arab for oil started looking at different alternatives to, get oil. And that was when we had our oil boom in Nigeria because they were looking elsewhere to carry out some of these transactions. And the same thing goes with what is currently happening. Everybody will definitely be thinking of how to get a different alternative. And I can guarantee you, Mr. Putin right now will also be looking at that different alternative method. If possible, he will also be building his own global payment platform where every other country who are allied to Russia will also be able to carry out transactions. And the nations who are already in business with Russia will also be able to, carry out transactions if this actually happens. And I want to tell you that, with the smartness, with the foresight that he has, he's already thinking about, the alternative method of making transaction happen, and it is happening already.
So can Russia and the West survive this new dimension? Will they survive it?
You see, every circumstances that leads to war situation will always end up in dialogue. It has always ended up in dialogue. We had the First World War, we had the Second World War, everything they came back to the round table to have a discussion, which was when, they all came together in 1945 to sign the MAD agreement called the Mutually Assured Destruction Agreement for anybody amongst the superpowers not to use the nuclear option. And I want to believe that the same concept will also be applied with the global market that we have currently. They will still need to come back and see how they can sit down and iron out these issues. Dialogue will definitely ensure there are a lot of conversations that are happening behind closed doors that are not actually open to us. And I want to believe that those international parleys will continue because it is not actually healthy for anybody. Everybody is feeling the heat economically, globally, and whether you like it or not, you're feeling the heat directly or indirectly. So there are a lot of conversations that are happening, diplomatic conversations that are happening behind closed doors that will actually bring everybody back to the negotiating table for them to be able to, have a peaceful resolution to all of this. Is this situation sustainable in the long run? The answer is no, because it is even expensive. A lot of people are losing money, are actually being lost on a daily basis because of this, chaos that we have. But I want to believe that with, the dialogues that we've been having, what you see in the media sometimes are smoke screen, where everybody just want to come and, show their might and their power. But I can guarantee you that there are concrete dialogues that will be happening right now behind closed doors to bring all of this to an end.
Okay, while we're looking at bringing all of these to an end, if it's going to work for the global payment systems, here we are in Nigeria and in Africa. Earlier, if you listened, we had a complete acquisition of Baxi payment platform by MSF Africa. How will this whole activity, now that we're seeing Africa strengthening herself, what will it mean for stronger currency if we're going to now change the naira to the dollar, and then in some instances change the naira, for instance, to the ruble to do transactions? If this continues, where is Africa? Are we prepared?
Yeah, well, that is the reason why I will say that the African Union, to a large extent, has promoted, cross-border payment, cross-border transaction, borderless, transaction across board, and that was what metamorphosized into what you have today as a PAPS, that was launched just some few months ago. Now, the PAPS is just like the NIPS that you have today in Nigeria, which will enable interoperability across the different 54 African countries for us to be able to perform transaction. So if we can come on that platform together to perform transaction, that will guarantee that we are now facilitating trade, we are facilitating borderless trade across the entire African continent. And that is the way to go, because we are opening our economy to the different opportunity and the comparative advantages that we all have as individual countries, as a collection in the African continent. So with all of these initiatives and policies, I can guarantee you that we are also thinking ahead, and we are looking at also, consuming what we also have in Africa, whereby promoting a whole lot of trade activities, facilitating income generation, employment generation. This is going to actually galvanize into what you will see as a very strong, formidable African Union entity, just the way you have the European Union today. And we know no distant time, I will also be looking at a unifying currency that we can all identify with in Africa that is also digitally driven, where everyone can use to perform transactions.
I must sincerely thank you, Aliu Isa Shatta, for your contributions on the program. I've been speaking with him, of course. He joined us from Lagos, and he is the Vice President at Conga Pay. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Do have a nice one.
You too.
Oil prices declined in the afternoon of Asia trading hours, while international benchmark Brent crude futures went down 3.32% to $116.65 per barrel. U.S. crude futures slipped 3.71% to $109.68 per barrel. The U.S. dollar index, which tracks the greenback against a basket of its peers, was at 99.296 following a recent climb from below 98.7. The Japanese yen traded at 123.88 per dollar, weaker than levels below 120 seen against the greenback last week. The Australian dollar was at $0.753, having risen from below $0.74 last week. Now, yam is a staple food around Abuja local government area and the northern district of Cross River State. However, for some time now, the price of yam is on the high side, even though Abuja is known to be a major trade center for yams. In this report, Esuedofi filed in a report on availability and affordability of the food product.
A market survey across Ilogoja reveals that a set of yam, which consists of 5 tubers previously sold for between 3,000 and 3,500 naira, depending on the size. It's now sold for 4,500 and above.
When you ask them, they will say price of kebika don't cost, price of this they use in farm, it don't they cost. So the thing make price of yam to go increase. Like yam, what would they buy formally for like 3,000 now? They'll give you for 4,500, 5,000.
Yam traders confirmed the increment, noting that yam is now expensive in the area, irrespective of the fact that Abuja is one of the largest producers of yam within and outside Cross River State.
We don't look for better money, but we don't see. Now, small money when the price of it. Like this, my own man open a mail, you see. I 30,000, not 22,000, they give me 20,000. How we go get survive for this our back?
They attributed a hike in yam price to fuel scarcity and high cost of transportation, as well as the season, as they noted old yam is gradually giving way to new yam. Esu Edodi.
Thank you, Esu. We move to the Nigerian stock market, where it lagged in the last trading week we experienced as it ended, of course, on a negative note. Moplang Dakok has a review of that market.
Investors lost 171 billion naira in the week ended 25th March 2022 as they exchanged 1.176 billion shares worth 16.6 billion naira in 21,076 deals. The NGX All-Share Index depreciated by 0.67% at 46,964.23 basis points. Market capitalization dropped to close the week at 25.311 trillion naira. All indices finished lower with the exception of NGX Afri-Div Yield and NGX Merry Growth indices, which appreciated, while NGX ASEM and NGX Growth indices closed flat. The financial services industry led the activity chart with 954.4 million shares valued at 10.2 billion naira in 12,700 deals. The consumer goods industry followed, while the third place was the conglomerates industry. Fidelity Bank, United Bank for Africa, and Guarantee Trust Holding Company were the top three trades for the week. They jointly accounted for 456.9 million shares worth 4.4 billion naira in 4,982 deals, contributing 38.85% to total equity turnover volume. A total of 29,855 units of exchange-traded products (ETPs) valued at 3.456 million naira were traded in the week in 11 deals. Also traded were 10,273 units of federal government bonds valued at 10.494 million naira in 5 deals. 24 equities appreciated in price in the week. 44 equities depreciated in price, while 88 equities remained unchanged.
Thank you, Moplang. And the losing streak continues. It's a negative open for the Nigerian equities market as the NGX All-Share Index declined this Monday. At the close of trade, the All-Share Index dropped to 46,898.23 basis points. Market capitalization also went down to 25.275 trillion naira. 359.89 million shares were traded by investors in 5,163 deals valued at 2.641 billion naira. Global market is next with Nekaoku.
Let's begin from the U.S., where stock futures were mixed in early trading this Monday as a week filled with key economic reports kicked off and investors continue to keep a close eye on the Federal Reserve's planned interest rate hikes. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose by 27 points, S&P 500 declined 0.06%, and Nasdaq 100 was down by 0.35%. European stocks, on their part, moved higher as investors continue monitoring developments in the war between Ukraine and Russia. Germany's DAX added 1.52%, the London's FTSE topped 0.44%, and France's CAC 4 declined 1.54%. Stocks in Chinese technology firms mostly rose as Asia trading closed mixed, with oil prices falling more than 3%. The Nikkei 225 in Japan slipped 0.73% to close at 27,943.89. The Shanghai Composite rose 0.07%, while in Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index topped 1.31%. And here in Africa, markets were also mixed in early deals. JSE Africa Top 40 led declines by 0.34%. Namibia's overall index slipped 0.04%, while other stocks on the continent were in positive territory. And that's Global Market Review. I am Neka Oko.
Thank you, Neka, and that brings us to the end of this episode of the program. Business Express returns Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. Be safe out there.